on KEXP Seattle. That is iDLEWiLD from their latest release, and even more cutting edge. They're right here in the KEXP studio. Part of the band's here. Most of the band's here ready to do an acoustic set. Roddy, Rod, and Alan, welcome back to KEXP.
Thank you.
You were here. We were just discussing. Do you remember when that was?
It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It was the last time we really properly toured America. Sort of.
So it was 2001.
April 2001, yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised how bands remember being here after all the places that you've been. And a lot has happened since then.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we've recorded another record, written and recorded another record, put it out, and spent pretty much a year touring it around Europe, and then now it's coming out here. I mean, the record was much more popular than anything we've ever released ever. Really, it really kind of made a connection with the general public as opposed to just kind of indie rock fans, which our records previous were pretty much more. That's who bought them. So.
Well, you first, in older interviews I've read, you described your music sort of as noisy pop. How do you see it having evolved since that time?
Well, I mean, kind of terms and comparisons. I try and kind of I don't care who we get compared to and what people sort of define us as. In my mind, I can't really. All I know is that as an individual and as also a band collectively, we've kind of, in the past 6 years, we've become something completely different than what we were.
You definitely have.
I think that nowadays I don't really know what to call it. There's so many sort of hipster sort of ways of defining music that you just call yourself a rock band that quite often people wouldn't even consider listening to you, which I think is a little bit silly. But it's I suppose it's thoughtful guitar music, something like that. I don't know.
That's a good way to put it. It is thoughtful guitar music. You have grown incredibly, both just finding your own voice and style, the lyrics, the music. Is the part of that from having gotten exposure and toured and now putting out something that, as you said, seems to resonate with a much broader group of people?
I think it's just being given the liberty of time actually to develop. And not a lot of bands, American bands, have it more because you can actually, feasibly make money just travelling around America playing shows. Whereas in Britain you can't. In 2 weeks you've played everywhere. So you have to and the music press is like that as well. It demands new bands constantly. It's very impatient. It doesn't let bands grow into being good bands. And we're kind of rare in this sense that we have actually grown into being a good band. And, we were kind of, there was a charm to the band initially, even though it was kind of, a bit crappy. It was just sort of, fun. It was sort of chaotic. And now we've actually been allowed to grow into a band and understand ourselves on our own terms,
I think I heard that one of you said anyway, that you had done enough material for 3 albums for this album, but honed it down into what came out as this new release called The Remote Part.
That was probably an exaggeration. I think.
But there was a lot of material there to work with.
We spent a bit of time up in the Highlands in Scotland, just really putting down as many ideas as we came up with, and it was probably about 30 ideas, song ideas, and it ended up being 11 on the album. But it's always a process of elimination, isn't it? Right,
and you really have to hone things down to put out when you're as prolific, at least as songwriters as your band is. It's a honing down process, but that gives you a lot of material to work with.
Yeah, well, I suppose we are prolific to a certain extent. We do write a lot of songs that we just all hate straight away. Yeah, we've got kind of quite a strong taste filter in the band.
But that's excellent. You get the bad out of the way immediately.
I hope so, anyway.
Well, this is a real treat because you're doing an acoustic set here in the studio, and that's different than what people will hear tonight. I mean, you can see iDLEWiLD tonight at Graceland, and you're going to do a song from the new album, The Remote Part?
Yes, we are. We're going to do a song called American English.
Okay, whenever you're ready. This is KEXP with iDLEWiLD live in the Leopard Lounge.
Are all dedicated to you. In this invisible world I choose to live in. And if you believe that, then now I understand why the words mean so much to you. They'll never be about you. So maybe you're young without youth, or maybe you're old without knowing anything's true. I think you're young without youth. Then you contracted American dreams. You'll never look up once. Then you contracted American dreams. I require you to stop and look up. Sing the song about myself. Keep singing the song about myself. Not some invisible world. I'm constantly searching to find something new. But what will you find when you think that nothing's true? You know that maybe it's that nothing is new. So you let me hear songs that were written all about you. The good songs weren't written for you. They'll never be about you. Then you contracted American dreams. You'll never look up once. Then you contracted American dreams. I require you to stop and look up. Sing the song about myself. Keep singing the song about myself. Not some invisible world. I sing the song about myself. Keep singing the song about myself. Not some invisible world. And you came along and found the weak spot that you've always wanted, and let yourself be everything that you've always wanted. It doesn't have to be so decided, and you've always wanted. There's no need for explanations. That you've always wanted. 'Cause you'll find what you find when you find there's nothing. 'Cause you'll find what you find when you find there's nothing.
iDLEWiLD live in the KEXP studios, playing tonight at Graceland. Pretty beautiful version of that song.
Oh, thanks.
Ronnie, can you talk a little bit about what that song is about?
Well, I guess it's kind of questioning the nature of songs in general. It's kind of mocking them. It's mocking the whole idea of being heartfelt and being a singer-songwriter. And also, you know, when people write songs about people, and the whole idea of someone having a song that they believe is their song, and the fact that quite often it's just lies, half of it. You know, it's very self-centered thing to do, to write a song. So it's kind of, it's in a way, it's kind of it's in this sort of, it's a mock anthem, because it's kind of encouraging people to sing the song back to themselves.
And you had said that most songs people write, or maybe all songs, in your opinion, are written about themselves, and they just
yeah. I mean, I'm making generalizations, obviously, but you get the liberty to do that when you're doing something as absurd as writing songs for kind of, you know, all the time.
But then that song really resonated with a lot of people. That became a single in the UK.
It became a bit of a hit in Britain and Europe, which was actually quite funny in a way. That it was on the radio, because it's such a sing-along song, but at the same time it's questioning the whole nature of singing along to songs.
So that was kind of unexpected that would be
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, there's two sides of it. One is this, you know, it's got a bit of thought behind it, and another, you know, it is kind of just, it's a real kind of, I hate to use the word ballad, but it's almost like a ballad, isn't it? You know, it's not Bon Jovi, but, you know, it's...
It's a ballad anti-anthem.
Yeah. I guess that's the classification I'd give it.
Speaking of radio airplay, a listener who he's from Scotland, lives in Seattle, and he wrote in a question that I thought was so interesting. He wanted to ask about your thoughts about the radio industry, but the radio, maybe the stations that you get in the UK and in Scotland in particular, and is radio supporting this wave of Scottish bands like yourselves, and Arab Strap, iDLEWiLD,
It's
Mogwai?
not really the it's very different to America. I mean, America, you've got your college stations and, you know, stations that alternative stations that really support music, and a lot of people listen to them.
Yeah.
In Britain, I mean, Radio 1 kind of has it dominates everything. Basically, it's the most listened to radio station by, people our age. Obviously, there's local specialist shows on Radio Scotland, but they're very much for people that it's like, what's the preaching to the converted? They say converted to the preaching, but that's wrong.
Preaching to the choir?
Yeah, it's it's play music that people already own.
Right.
Like alternative records. So yeah, I guess it's a healthier environment for radio here, I think. Yeah.
What's that? Better than Britain, but...
the local place in Scotland that just chart music and anything that's just shipping from there.
There's more people excited about bands like Mogwai and the Dogados and iDLEWiLD and Arab Strap in America than there is in Scotland, I think, because people take them for granted a little bit more over.
And perhaps they're not getting any real mainstream exposure there.
Well, all these bands, including us, I mean, we play to big audiences in Scotland and have Scottish fans, but it's kind of like they quite often take bands for granted. Where it's probably the same in Seattle, and I bet there's Seattle bands that locals just take for granted because they've seen them a lot and they know them, and they get more excited about bands coming into the kind of environment.
Do you have a theory as to why Scottish bands are so popular right now, especially in the States and on the rise? Obviously, there's the radio airplay we were just talking about, but is there a Scottish sort of sound? Or
I think it's just I mean, all these bands, without wishing to be big-headed and include our band in it, I think we're just good bands,
Yeah.
Genuine names.
I think that, bands like the Dogados and Mogwai and Bell and Sebastian just strike good music, and they don't. I think there's maybe a sort of sense of slight freedom to it. It's not like there's no, like in London and other sort of capitals of music. Maybe that there's an attitude which in Scotland there's not an attitude like that. People really can do what they want.
Maybe that's the genuineness that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I haven't really thought about it too much. It's just
But that's certainly true with you. Your genuineness comes through, and it's just what we were talking about in the beginning, about finding your voice and finding the music that works.
I mean, yeah, there's an authenticity to a lot of Scottish music, I guess, just because there's a sort of sense of identity to all the bands.
Yeah, and all the bands are not necessarily similar to one another in sound.
No, I mean, I think that's that's because it's quite a small musical scene. So there's too many bands that sound alike, then one of them's going to fall by the wayside. So there's a conscious decision to sound different.
Yeah, exactly. iDLEWiLD's here live in the KEXP studios, and you're going to do one more song off. Is this going to be off the new album, the remote part?
This is another one from the remote part, yeah.
All right. Which was just released, by the way, domestically, but they've had it out for a while in Europe, so it's just making its way to America now, and they're touring behind it, and that means that they're playing here in Seattle tonight at Graceland with the full band, which will be the addition of bass, drums.
And we're doing an acoustic in-store later on as well, Sonic Boom.
Oh, great. Yeah. Good. Thanks for mentioning that. Sonic Boom Records.
Okay, this is called You Held the World in Your Arms. Every face, even the one you saw yesterday, it looks different today, 'cause everything's changed since yesterday, in every possible way. Things seem different today. It's not like yesterday. It's consideration, more like an exception of consideration. Held the world in your arms tonight. And what if you held the world in your arms? When you're secured so you feel much safer, when days never change and it's 3 years later, it's like your life, it hasn't changed and it's 3 years late. So how does it feel to be 3 years late and watching your youth drift away? And what seems different today. And what seems different today. Is consideration, more like an exception of consideration. And you held the world tonight? And what if you held the world in your arms? And you held the world in your arms tonight. And what if you held the world in your arms?
iDLEWiLD doing an acoustic set live here in the KEXP studios. It's been great to have you in,
Thank you for having us.
especially following your progress over the past few years. iDLEWiLD's playing tonight at Graceland, and we couldn't end without at least asking about maybe some future plans. Anything in mind? You're on tour right now, so it may be hard to think
Well,
beyond.
we finished this tour kind of another month to go, and then we're coming back in June, playing support to Pearl Jam. And yeah, I think there's no Seattle date, I don't think. I think it's Vancouver and San Francisco.
Well,
And then if that goes well, we'll be back and hopefully in sort of the fall maybe to do another tour.
so of course you have to tour to bring your music to people, but can I ask what your favorite part of song making is? Is it recording in the studio? Is it live shows? I know those are two different experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what time. At the moment, we're just into playing and we're getting, we've kind of hit our sort of stride, I suppose, and we've been on tour for
Yeah.
6 months now. And but I mean, in 4 months' time, I can imagine we'll be kind of getting ready to kind of, going back in the studio and write some songs and just constant, because you put yourself in a totally different frame of mind when you're doing separate things.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more like 100 miles an hour being on tour.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're recording and writing music, it's much the pace is a lot slower.
It takes a special kind of person and personality, I think, to be able to tour the way you guys have been doing.
Yeah, I guess you need to have an understanding between everyone, otherwise it won't work.
Yeah, you're in enclosed spaces for long periods of time, and lots of setup and takedown to play for a relatively short time, which is probably the best part.
But I mean, if you adapt yourself to it, it can actually be probably one of the most fun ways to live.
Well, you are an adaptable band, and again, that's really worked in your favor. You came out with this really strongest of your releases. I think you'd agree, right?
Yeah, I
with
think
the
so.
remote part.
I think it is. Yeah, a lot of people have. People always hang on to records they love, and our last record was kind of a lot of people got really into it. So there is a division of people saying, "Oh, I prefer the last one," but I think general consensus of this one's just much more accomplished and better songs.
Yeah, and I think it'll grow on those fans too. If they were that attached to the last album, just think about this one. And when you put out your fourth full length, God only knows. But we'll definitely look forward to more from you in the future. And thanks so much for stopping by KEXP this afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
This is KEXP Seattle.